One of the things I thought of, Tom, and you can weigh in on this, is the possibility of the Athenaeum receiving it and then just cutting a check
Mhm.
to, so what we're talking about is hiring a consultant, an attorney
Mhm.
to draw up this agreement. And so we would receive money to the Athenaeum and then just cut a check to this consultant. And so the Athenaeum would act as a conduit.
Yeah, I mean,
Fiscal agent for the
as long
project.
as there's no liability, I don't see why there would be an issue.
Okay.
There's only liability if you mishandle it. I also talked to Suzanne, the deputy city manager, and she said she would look into what it would mean with a trust fund. The trust fund, apparently, you get into having their approval, once it's in the trust funds, and
Right, you never
get
got it
into
out of there.
their approval for
Yeah.
withdrawing it, so.
Forget that. Let's do the Athenaeum.
But anyway, we should, so, and we're not gonna get any grants or anything for the organization without the 501c3 either. And so what we have to do is look for some
there.
private money.
Yeah, and that came up in our first meeting about grants.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, and who are you turning to for that private money?
well, I would say that, anyone who knows of, private people who they feel comfortable with, to talk to them, and we can, you know, we have our little brochure and we have the document, so, did everyone get the little brochure?
Mhm.
Did you get that?
No.
This one?
Oh, I haven't gotten that. No, I saw it online.
Online.
Yeah.
I only have 3 of them with me. So who wants one? You too?
Yeah.
We order additions.
Well, I ordered some
Yeah,
because I figured I'm gonna be asking people for money. so-
you were able to get.
Yeah, I got,
find it online.
yeah. But,
Let me know if you need it tweaked, something added, subtracted to it too, as we move along. I'm assuming that there's gonna be some need for
Nice.
change.
You see it?
mhm.
Yes, thank you.
See it, Tom?
And Emma presented this at the, I forget what it-
Yep.
Rightfully in touch.
Portsmouth Historic Sites Association
Yeah.
Symposium, yep.
And Ellen told me that there was a woman that she watched as you were talking about it. She was like doing that.
Good,
So I don't, but I forget.
How
who
big's
that
your
was.
bank account?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that update now, or I can keep it until we get to that point on the agenda, but,
Well, I guess we should probably,
To close out the legal, it's
Mhm.
just, we would have to have the board approve it on Wednesday, right?
Yeah. I don't know that we're ready for that quite yet, but we
Well-
might as well.
Why don't you get the approval out of the way?
Yeah,
yeah.
So that then you know whether you can act or not.
yep.
And also there was the question of all the boards really being in, and I know that Linnea is in. But I don't know, I guess the question was, is the board in Strawberry Bank, because they're really the, the fiscal responsibility.
I don't think they voted on it the way the Adnan board has voted on it, but they're aware of it.
Yeah,
They say they are.
yeah.
So the
I can
thought
predict
at
that.
this meeting, at the legal meeting, was that Strawberry Bank should be at the table
mhm.
and be part of the development of this entity, because they will be part of the entity. So I don't know who that
Yeah,
would be, but
I mean, of course, Linnea's on vacation, but I can check back in with her because I did mention that to her, like, is
Mhm.
there a lawyer on our board that could be part of this process? That was
back then.
November or December.
Yeah.
She obviously hasn't done anything, so.
Is
I
that
don't know.
Scott? Is
It
he
could
still on the
be,
board?
But I think there's two other lawyers as well.
Okay.
And I didn't name
Right.
the board members.
Okay.
Who's the chair now?
Right now, it's still Cynthia,
Oh, okay.
and soon it'll be Kathy. Well, I don't know about soon. Next, it'll be Kathy.
Next, yeah. I ran into Linnea over the weekend.
Mm.
And I said that I'd like to get together with her at some time soon, so,
Oh, good. Maybe if we both remind her, she might do so.
yeah. Good. And so that's good. I mean, we do need that kind of fiscal to move forward, you know.
So assuming that works, what's next on your subcommittee's talk?
So Trevor is researching a consultant that we can bring in to actually do the work of drawing up this entity document. And so that's kind of where we just want somebody who can do the work before we start having in-depth conversations about what it will look
What they
like.
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if, you know, I think, we're gonna have to pay this guy,
Yes, right.
and, so that's the chicken and egg.
Yeah.
Right there.
And then the rest of our meeting was really just kind of bringing Trevor along and into the mix and so that he was familiar with what we were trying to accomplish, but he was definitely all in and he was excited about joining us and he said he's our guy as far as the city contact.
Yeah, he's kind of excited about creating something rather than litigating something.
That would be a plus.
So, yeah. Anything else on that? Any questions? So funding sources.
Well, we met, what, a week ago? 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
a week ago, I think, yeah.
And sort of brainstormed some ideas, looked up the IMLS that's due February 2025. I did talk to, we sort of mused about a potential Moose Plate grant, but I talked to the state and the archive has to be held publicly. So like the library could apply for a Moose Plate grant, but none of us could.
Mm.
The city gets one every year.
Oh,
that-
really?
that Abby
Yeah.
uses for protecting and taking care, and it's tiny.
Like conservation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, it's so little for what she has to do that.
Mm.
Like, we're not, for these assessments, we're not looking for a huge amount of money. So it seemed like a Moose Plate could maybe cover us, but no, we're just not.
But
So,
we could, but I could, you're saying.
but you could,
Yeah. Good to know.
So that's an issue for your lawyers.
I was gonna say, so what grant
We
is
need
that?
to be part of the city
Yeah,
somehow.
or do
In
we
order
need to
to
be
get-
part of the city or do we need to be separate from the city?
No,
So
we
that
need
the
to, for
city,
that grant have to be city,
right,
but
which
for
means,
others, you
which means
can't
we
be.
need to be separate from
Right.
the city.
right? So one of the things
We
to
need it
look
to be-
into is,
Yeah,
can our participating organizations apply for grants
Yes,
for this project
for the entity,
for the entity?
yes.
right. And so part of the conversation we had the other day was, is the entity set up in a way that the city is separate? And then the partnering organizations are contracting with the city so that the city is allowed to apply for grants that they would be,
Mhm. And the Moose Plate is just one example of that.
exactly, that would be one example of that, yeah. And
Is
then,
that what the indoor pool was? Was its own entity and it,
I don't know if it would be a pool or if it would be,
No,
Well, I mean,
the indoor pool
the-
oh,
was,
the indoor
That
pool.
that was,
Yes,
that was a 501c3,
yeah,
so it's
And-
similar.
and they raised their own funds. Yeah. And also, I mean, the city said as well, or Trevor said, I believe, that, I'm not sure whether it was Suzanne or Trevor, but, that with the, as with the pool, the city finance department can act as the fiscal agent for the nonprofit as
Mhm.
well. So we don't, we don't have to, have accountants, and
Mhm.
it can be handled through the city as a service, without having to go through the trustees. I think that was part of what that conversation was.
Good plan.
Sounds better.
Yeah, and then the only other thing that we discussed that got into a sort of circular discussion was, for the collections assessment,
Mhm.
if you get that, that's the gateway to further federal grants. And then as Emma was looking them up on her phone, different stages were only for nonprofits, and some of them could include municipal entities, some of them excluded municipal
Mhm.
entities. So it got very complicated very quickly.
Good thing we have a year to unravel.
Yes.
So it is gonna be
There is
important that we
somebody
be
in
able to separate.
Washington who could probably tell you exactly how that works.
Mhm.
And it's probably worth talking to a person like
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yep.
Someone was talking about the grants that are looking for collaboration between municipalities and
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the one through the National Archives, but the
Yep.
deadline for that was February 15th.
We'll still be on the plan for next February
Mhm.
15th.
Yeah.
Start writing now.
Yeah. And those are the larger
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
big.
kind of research and implementation grant. And I think we all agreed the first step is to do this
Yeah.
collections assessment. But as we're finding out, there are certain grants available to nonprofits, certain grants available to the city. They're not all the same. So figuring out at this early stage, do we try to do the same thing, but through separate avenues? Or is there a way for us to talk to CAP and see if they'd be willing to accept a proposal that is something
Yeah.
different and unique? So I think there are a few more kind of individual reach out conversations we'll need to have because we're doing something that's different to see if they'd be willing to support it should we submit an application. So again, asking if we could submit the application before we do all the work. I think is going to be a key part of it moving forward because we do have the mix of municipality and nonprofits.
anything else.
Would it simplify or complicate things for each organization to request grant funding for their own assessment?
It's just that if we can get the initial funding as the joint,
Yeah.
that opens the door
to every-
Yes.
to as opposed to, because the Athenaeum has already done it
You're right,
once.
yeah.
um, It it makes sense to try to then move it to be a joint,
Mhm.
Assessment.
Showing the collaboration.
right,
Mhm.
and showing that it has a history of funding.
Mhm.
And the consultant will then actually know what this new institution needs.
Yes.
Because
Right.
they'll have done all of the pieces, not
Right.
just one.
Right.
The other thing we did talk about too was if going through a state or a federal program proves to be too complicated with the mix of entity types, that we could look at private foundation funding too.
Mhm.
But I think we all agreed, we all get a fair amount of private foundation funding for our own organization. So wanting to make sure we wouldn't compete with any of that private, specifically private foundation. Now, private individuals is a different conversation, but private foundations, many of them don't have the same restrictions on types of entities they will fund that some of the state and federal grants do. So we may have more options available to us that way. So that's another avenue we can pursue as well.
I think what would be helpful for us, Vince, is to have a list or a spreadsheet with all the grant options and then who's eligible for them. So that as we create the entity, we can build it around what's available.
And when their application is due.
and when their application is due. Yeah.
How many months ahead you have to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
planning on it, right?
And the content, yeah, we should do that,
Mhm,
content.
mhm.
Great.
Mhm.
I can put that together. I started that list for the report anyway, so I can just turn it into a spreadsheet. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And add to it.
So that
The group can just,
the
Keep it live.
New Hampshire nonprofits probably already has that on their website. and you
I
can
bet
just
they
hit
do.
print.
Mhm. Yes.
anything else?
Actually, New Hampshire nonprofits would be a good one to talk to about
Mhm.
the issue of city and
Mhm.
nonprofit
Mhm.
collaboration. If there, it may not be archives related, but it might be land,
Mhm.
property, who knows what. We ought to talk to somebody over there and see who knows
Mhm.
what.
The e-blast last week was about grant deadlines.
Mhm.
Yes. Mhm.
Nobody in our partners has the foundation's directory, do they? Don't have a copy of the. Okay. 'Cause
I don't. I bet Joe does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Strawberry Bank does.
What is it?
It's, well, it
Directory
used
of-
to be, I'm going like this because
Yeah.
it's a book, but it's online now.
Yeah.
But it's something I asked for in my budget this year because I heard from 4 or 5 nonprofits. One had requested it and I said, we were considering this, how many people would use it? And this person sent me like 6 people she had talked to within 2 days who said, yes, we'd all be thrilled because the only one in New Hampshire is in Concord and you have to be there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go to the
Like
state
physically go
library.
there. And what's it called?
It used to be
Directory?
called the
Foundation
Foundation
Directory.
Directory, and it's now
Still
called
is.
something that means nothing whatsoever, like conundrum.
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
think there's Self Foundation Directory online, and then there's also Grant Station. There are a whole host of different basically databases that you have to buy a subscription to,
Mhm.
but that will give you all the grants that are available.
Yeah.
Some of them, I think like Grant Station's more basic and that's a lower price point, but you can pay like thousands of dollars to get you the ones that give you
The real
all the
stuff.
grants and foundations.
That's why we
We,
didn't have it.
yeah,
Right.
We used to have it.
That's
When it
why
was
a lot-
paper, we had it, but
Yeah.
it's now it's like $2,900. And so
right.
I put it into the budget, which
Good.
we'll know about later.
But I'm sure
Yeah.
Joe has it or knows
Yeah.
how to get it,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
would be a good person to ask.
Okay. Let's see what I can do.
It's kind of like a candy store though, when you're grant.
Yes.
What you really learn
Expensive
is how
thing.
many foundations there are that you can't apply to.
Right.
So, yeah.
If you're the 3rd daughter
Of
of an
a-
Yeah.
immigrant from Armenia,
Yeah.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah, my suspicion is the folks who are gonna pay for this, we already know somehow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, again, it's just not that much in reality. A lot of money, but it's not that much money to do these assessments.
Oh, the assessments are nothing, no, but the project
Right. so the
I'm
project is
talking
there.
about.
But I think the project is ambitious enough that some
Bigger foundation.
foundations that might not fund us individually
Right.
would be interested.
Mhm.
And because I've never done anything like this, what is it like if you have somebody that you think is a good prospect? What kind of delivery of information is typical so that they understand what the project is and it seems very beneficial to them?
Cry.
Now we know your technique.
I think it's just a very clearly written narrative.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's all written.
Yeah,
2 stories and the data point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and personal relations.
Mhm.
The one I mentioned last year was IBM with African American Museum
Mhm.
in Washington. It just captured their imagination having
Mhm.
this public educational historic
yeah.
foundation. And
And this wouldn't be tax deductible to them because it's not an entity yet.
oh, the first I was talking about the bigger. I'm
Yeah,
talking about
ah.
the bigger grants, the littler grant.
For the
That they
initial.
don't need tax. I mean, they're doing grants. So.
Right.
IBM would be for the big one. I'm not
Right,
talking-
right. But I mean, for a small donor, what we consider small donors in this area.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they
For
donated
the
it.
small donor
Mhm.
who wants to help support our initial steps, they can write it to the Athenaeum,
Mhm.
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 just like anybody else who would be
Mhm.
funding this project.
That's beneficial.
Right.
We just have to make sure they write the purpose in
Yeah.
In the note line.
Yes.
So that speaks to what print materials we might need beyond what we have. So.
So these brochures, if we want them, we're sort of self-printing.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, through
That's on
this,
the agenda.
it's the cheapest way to do small runs
Yeah.
right now.
I just printed some for myself and.
And Vince
yeah.
has been funding it all along so far.
Where'd you print yours?
Well, Kristen has gotten them, but, Vista print.
Yeah, high tech, he's been Venmoing me back.
Okay.
So, but, does anybody have thoughts about, are there other, from people who have sought money? Do we need something? Do we need a pared down report, for example? Or a document that talks about, maybe, I don't know what is.
So I think what
3
will
or 4
confuse,
pages, as opposed to, 40.
I think what will confuse a potential donor right now is just where we're at.
Mhm.
Who am I giving it to? And what does this cover? You're not asking about somebody for $10 million, you're asking somebody for some first step along the way. So you need a short document that describes what the Washington survey stuff
Mhm.
is and what the larger institution can be,
Mhm.
right? And it's probably more on how we're gonna do this little piece of it than the longer. tail.
Exactly.
So you
yeah.
need some language that you can.
And we're probably looking at somewhere between 10 and 25,000, I would guess.
Yeah,
And that information is basically in our report, right? So the narratives and the
Mhm.
steps can just be pulled as we're doing grant writing.
Yeah,
A lot of it can-
I think we estimated 20, right, when we met
Mhm.
for doing the initial assessment for the,
So
better ask-
But I
Organization,
think
somewhere
Jeff
in there.
was talking about the legal.
we're talking about.
Gotcha.
legal-
Sorry.
legal entity.
creating
Yeah.
a legal.
So now we're up to 50.
15 to 20 for you, 20 for us, so yeah.
Right, but the thought was that yours would be grant
Mhm.
money, right? And ours would
Yes.
be soft dollars.
Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
not ours, it's all ours.
Yeah, but I mean, what we're talking about, yeah. Coming from individuals. So, I mean, I think it would be good to have a briefer document, something between this
Yeah.
and the report.
Yeah,
And with a lot more emphasis on things that will have sex appeal to the donor,
Mhm.
mhm,
because there ain't much sex appeal in this.
There's, and there's very little, I mean, for most people, there's very little tax advantage to donate anymore, for most people,
mhm.
which is a shame. I think,
So you're really stuck with the people who already have structured ways they have to
yeah,
donate,
yeah.
which means New Hampshire Charitable Fund, goddamn, it's an awful organization.
So. Right,
So to, just further this topic, sorry, we're changing something, about the need for this smaller document. Like what we did with the brochure, Elizabeth and Emma helped me create that. So whenever anyone's ready to release or work amongst yourselves to, on that text, and then release it to me and I can create something.
Mhm.
I just need to know what form you want to deliver it. Is it going to be something like a brochure, a larger format of the brochure, or is it just going to be
A letter.
text document? A letter,
Yeah.
a needs letter.
So there's.
You may not need me for that.
Who wants to work on that?
If you need.
Don't
me,
everyone raise their hand.
If you need me to make it pretty, on board.
I think I don't know, I would just pause as we're looking at
Mhm.
what is being required in those grants that we're going for before
Mhm.
Mhm.
writing the thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for our funding needs, we're not at the point of needing anything,
Big.
anything bigger, anything even at this point, because we're so far out from deadlines. And honestly, when we write the grant, probably just go to the report and cut and paste a lot of sections or redo it. Like, I don't know that because the narrative questions will be so specific, I don't think it's worth trying to create a new document
Yeah,
out
I
of the
agree.
report. I think we have everything we need at this point. However, if you think for your
I'm talking about.
funding
first-
needs,
Individual
The private
yes,
people.
then that
But I
should.
think that would be a good first start for a draft is to pull from the report.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And then we
I
can
also,
edit that.
you also want talking points so that you're not talking to Mrs. So-so and saying one thing and Christine is talking
Yeah.
to her brother-in-law and saying something different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is not in, could I see that again, the brochure? What is not in here that we would, because my impression was that this was for that kind of discussion. That this was for talking to potential.
I think that it is. I
donors.
think Vince is just looking for like a deeper. It's just like a different level.
Yeah.
So basically, to create something bigger, we just need to pull out a little bit more detailed information than we
Yeah.
did for that.
Like,
More of an
Vince is
introductory
trying to get
document.
to.
And
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
or internal use talking
well,
points.
just like sparks interest,
That's right.
and then we need the next step. And then the full report if they want it, but I don't think a lot of people are gonna read the full report.
Probably.
No, and I,
File it right away.
well, when we asked about printing, I was asked from the powers that be about what really needed to be printed, and I really liked
This.
this because it leads to whatever we're putting on our website.
Yeah.
So we could do a 4-page thing, or we have the whole report.
Right,
But I'm not sure about the middle piece being printed. I think
Right.
writing it is a nice way to narrow down what we had, as you say. Nobody's reading that. Maybe a few grant people are gonna read it, but I'm not sure what you are talking about in terms of more than this to print. So what
maybe,
else would be in there?
maybe to. Who said it? To the point that we want to be sending a single message, not
Consistent.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So talking points.
talking points.
Yep.
Maybe that's for us to
Mhm.
read,
Mhm.
and as we approach people.
And.
I like
the-
that.
And if you deal with it that way, as you approach your first 2 or 3 or 4 people, you will find out what's missing.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's true.
My point was just that everybody who is likely to fund this knows everybody else who's likely to fund it, and
Mhm.
we don't want them at a cocktail party saying,
That's not what they said.
Hey, did you hear
"We're gonna
about?
do this?"
Yeah.
That's not what I heard.
Yeah.
They promise you your name on it too?
What we wanted to do is have everyone on at the cocktail party talking about it.
Mhm.
Host your own cocktail party.
Mhm.
Get them all in one place.
That'll guarantee you 0 funding.
Okay. Well, you kind of talked about the symposium already, Emma. Do you, anything else to say about that?
The only thing I'll mention is when I asked up front how many people had heard of the archives project, in the room of 35, 40 people, the majority of them had their hands up. So I thought that was great that most people had heard about the project already. I was not expecting it to be that many people. So whatever we've
This
done,
group Doesn't.
I know if they don't know about it, then we have a problem. But I was pleasantly surprised by that. So I thought that was a great reflection on our work as a committee to get the word out about the work we're doing. And I would say it went about the way that most of our public info sessions did. A lot of questions that we're not prepared to answer at this point. How big a facility do you need? Where do you want the facility? What kind of building are you looking for? And all the time I was going, at this point, we have a lot more questions than answers. Here are some of the questions we're going to be grappling with. But so there wasn't really any departure. Elizabeth, maybe you remember differently because you were there, but the
No,
questions
yeah.
all seem to be in line with what we've experienced at past public info sessions. So
That was very patient.
yeah, but it was nice to hear. And yeah, a lot of people were kind of nodding along as I was talking about it. So it seemed like there was a lot of support for the project, and most people took brochures afterwards too. I mentioned that I had them in the back of the room and I held it up, and a lot of people took it. And I also had a sign up sheet where people could leave their email addresses if they wanted to stay up to date. So I have like 6 names on the email list, which
Yeah.
is great. So some people self-selecting to hear more about it. So it's always good too. So.
Yeah, so how do we take advantage of that email list then?
I think Stephanie had said something about maybe sending the emails to her, because I think, am I right in thinking that there's a way to sign up on our website now for like the city newsletter?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
there is a,
Just add it to that.
there's a
Yeah.
weekly newsletter from the city manager. And I don't know how often we can get in that, if there's new information,
Right.
but but that's good.
Yeah, I have the list and I can keep it. And that way, if we ever plan a public info session or anything else that invites the public, we can send those people,
Mhm.
I'm happy to send it a personal
why don't we do it
invite to
that way?
those. So,
It's a small list.
yeah,
We can grow it until it gets too
Right.
big for you.
exactly. Not a problem.
Of course, it would be nice to have access to the whole list of people who came.
We have that. Yeah, we sold the tickets, so we have that. Like we were the kind of fiscal agent for PHSA, so we do have the list of everyone who came, so.
Okay.
Utilize
This
that.
brings up a larger issue in terms of ongoing communication and promotion of this project.
Mhm.
And, I think the last time we were in Seacoast Online or the Portsmouth Herald was back in
June.
December. Was it your press release? When was that, Tom?
That was the summer.
That was this
Mhm.
summer?
Yeah, a long time.
Maybe we're due for another press release just to give the public an update as to where we're at and what our plans are for this year. And then maybe build a regular contact so that we can continue to put information out there, maybe quarterly or
Mhm.
something like that. But be proactive on. I think communication is a big part of our campaign, what we're trying to create in terms of funding and awareness.
Yeah, well, this is actually our last subject is public outreach, and it seems to me that there seem to be a lot of people interested, and so I would think that, I don't know. I don't know what to do about it.
I think the
guess,
talking points that you were mentioning would be really helpful for that too.
yeah,
Just general, I was asked a few weeks ago if I would come back onto the local radio
Mhm.
show.
That'd be
and-
good.
And that would be
That'd be great. yeah.
That would be really helpful to
Mhm.
have a nice,
1, 2,
Yeah.
3.
right, what do we want to get out there?
yeah,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I did that, actually, I spent my campaign time on the radio mostly talking about the archive.
Did you?
Well, that's how you got reelected. huh?
So. I was at the gym yesterday and this guy asked me what my name was and he said, "Oh, I voted for you."
Well, somebody you don't know has to vote for you,
Yeah,
or
I
you wouldn't be
guess.
here.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't ask him why. All right, so, yeah, the public outreach is an important one. I know that Tom Watson had this letter going out to all the
Mm-hmm.
organizations, but I think we accomplished that with what you did at the
Mhm.
meeting and,
Mhm.
you know, at the
Symposium.
symposium,
Mhm.
so. But maybe, you know, we still have that list that he created and maybe we can do some periodic updates directly to those people.
When you've got a structure and you know what your condition needs are, then would be a good time to hit more of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're asking for money to get there.
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Before our next meeting, I will work on talking points and maybe weaving that into a narrative that could be an update for the
Good.
the Herald.
Mhm. And if we do in fact get something in the Herald, it would be good to hit your first couple of potential funders locally
Mm-hmm.
around that time. That's something in the paper that
Mhm.
sort of reinforces why you're coming to them.
Mhm.
You need to have the same path.
And is it reasonable for each of the partner entities, counting me, to get some printouts of the triplicate before we have funding, or is that onerous for?
This, you mean?
I think we just have to pay for it.
It's a really great leave behind kind of a thing that reinforces
Yeah.
the message.
I will
So-
get some and have them available at the library.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be a
right.
good thing.
Right, absolutely.
And by tracking how many disappear, how fast,
Yeah.
we may get a sense of what our audience is out there.
Yeah. You think we should have some in the reading room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the research library, because people take the things off the rack cards
Mhm.
Yeah.
all the time.
Whether they need them or not.
So here's the question. I know, well,
Mhm.
no, I'm not gonna ask.
Go ahead.
The question that was never asked.
Go ahead. QR codes.
Yeah.
I know that QR codes many times have advertising and many times collect data that
Oh.
are
I vote no.
no, I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that people really trust the QR codes.
I did on the corrected version, which you have.
Yeah.
Actually, this one has it as well with my little sticker. I did give the URL as well. So if somebody was not comfortable using the QR
Yeah.
code, they can go directly by typing in the URL.
Okay,
For
good.
that reason.
And we have a simplified URL now too.
Mhm.
Yes,
with
yep,
the-
it's on yours, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Ports
You
NH.
can actually
co.
read it.
I know,
That must be Monty.
that one's bigger. Yeah, the corrected one is larger.
And then we have to think of a name.
What is the URL? Say that again. Hang on a minute while I send it back to.
It's
Chat. Okay.
ports, PORTSNH dot C.
PORT, sorry, ports.
Yeah.
Well, that's easier.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So any other, anything else?
I've got to get to another meeting.
Okay, I do have to ask if there's public comment, and there was someone on Zoom.
Yeah, that's what I'm writing. there.
He asked for his URL.
I'm sorry?
He's the one who asked for the URL.
Oh.
Archives.
So we're answering that one.
TBC.
And does he want to speak?
No. Thank you, George.
Oh, George. All right, can a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Mhm.
Aye.
Now have our roles.